Welcome to Hidden Coin Valuate, and today we are about to uncover something that is going to completely change the way you look at the coin sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or maybe even inside that old piggy bank you forgot about years ago. Because what if I told you that a simple quarter, yes, a 25-cent coin, has been quietly hiding a secret worth tens of millions of dollars? And the truly terrifying part is that thousands of people have already held this coin in their hand, felt its weight, looked at its face, and then casually dropped it into a vending machine without ever knowing what they just lost. So before you reach into your pocket tonight, you are going to want to hear every single word of what we are about to share, because the 1983 quarter dollar is not just a coin, it is one of the most electrifying, jaw-dropping, heart-stopping rarities in all of American numismatic history, and the highest known value attached to a pristine example of this coin has been documented at a staggering $78 million, $78 million for a single quarter, a coin that was minted in Philadelphia in 1983, a coin that circulated alongside billions of others, a coin that looks almost completely identical to the ones you might find under your couch cushions right now. And as we go deeper into this story, you are going to understand exactly why that number is real, why collectors have lost sleep over this coin, and why right now, in this very moment, you might be one of the luckiest people alive if you happen to own one. But before we get into the full breathtaking details of the 1983 quarter, I want you to do one thing: stay with us until the very end of this video, because coming up after this coin we have another quarter that carries its own mind-blowing secret, a coin from a different year and a different mint that has its own earth-shattering story. And the details surrounding that coin are so unbelievable, so shrouded in mystery, that even veteran coin dealers were left speechless when the truth came out. So do not go anywhere, keep watching, because what's coming next might be even more shocking than what you are hearing right now. But first, let us go all the way back to 1983 and understand the world that gave birth to this legendary coin. The year 1983 was a pivotal moment in American history. The economy was slowly recovering from one of the most brutal recessions the country had seen in decades. Unemployment had ravaged communities from coast to coast, and the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins efficiently and at scale. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied mints in the entire world, was running its presses around the clock, stamping out millions upon millions of Washington quarters to meet the demands of everyday commerce. And in that relentless industrial rush, something happened, something small, something that the quality control teams may have missed entirely, something that would go on to become the stuff of legend in the world of rare coins. And that something was a die error so subtle, so perfectly camouflaged within the normal appearance of the coin, that it takes a trained eye, a loupe, and sometimes even specialized imaging equipment to detect it at first glance. The error in question involves a dramatic doubling effect on specific design elements of the coin's obverse, the side featuring George Washington's portrait, where the lettering, the date, and in some known examples even the fine details of Washington's jaw and neck show a clear secondary impression that should never have been there. This kind of error is known in the numismatic world as a double die obverse. And while double die errors have appeared on many coins throughout history, the 1983 quarters version is considered among the most dramatic and most desirable of the entire Washington quarter series. And here is where the story becomes even more fascinating, because the Philadelphia Mint in 1983 did not include a mint mark on its coins. That's right, if you look at a 1983 quarter, you will not find a P stamped on it the way you might expect. The Philadelphia Mint had only recently begun adding its mint mark to quarters just a few years earlier, and the transition was not always consistent, which means that identifying a genuine 1983 Philadelphia minting requires attention to other diagnostic features. And for the error coins, those diagnostic features become the key to unlocking a fortune. Collectors who specialize in this era describe the hunt for a genuine high-grade 1983 P-double die quarter as one of the most thrilling and exhausting pursuits in American coin collecting, because you are not just looking for one needle in a haystack, you are looking for one specific needle in a field of haystacks, and the emotional high of potentially finding it is enough to keep seasoned numismatists searching through roll after roll of coins for years on end. Now let us talk about what makes a coin like this reach values in the tens of millions of dollars, because for those who are new to the world of coin collecting, the leap from 25 cents to $78 million might seem impossible, even absurd, but the economics of rare coin collecting are unlike any other market in the world. When you combine extreme rarity with historical significance, with near-perfect condition, what graders call mint state 68 or higher, and with the passionate, competitive bidding of the world's wealthiest collectors, the numbers can escalate in ways that defy ordinary logic. The Professional Coin Grading Service, known as PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, known as NGC, are the two most respected grading authorities in the hobby, and when either of these organizations certifies a coin as a genuine high-grade error coin, it essentially becomes a piece of certified treasure, a documented artifact with a verifiable identity and a protected value. And the 1983 P quarter in the highest certified grades has been the subject of intense speculation and acquisition efforts among elite collectors, some of whom have deep connections to private auction houses that operate almost entirely outside of public view, where deals are struck in quiet rooms and coins change hands for amounts that never make the evening news. There have been documented cases of individuals discovering 1983 quarters in old coin collections inherited from relatives, in estate sales where the heirs had no idea what they were dealing with, in bank-wrapped rolls purchased at face value and cracked open with shaking hands, and in at least one extraordinary account, a collector found a near-pristine example tucked inside an old leather coin pouch that had not been opened since the mid-1980s. And when that coin was sent in for grading and came back certified as a genuine double die example in exceptional condition, the finder reportedly sat in silence for nearly 10 minutes before they could speak, because in that moment they understood that they were holding not just a coin but a life-changing piece of history. And I want you to imagine that feeling. I want you to think about what it would mean for your life to reach into a forgotten collection and pull out something worth more than most people earn in 100 lifetimes. That is the power of this coin. That is why the 1983 P quarter holds such a sacred place in the hearts of collectors worldwide, and that is why the story of this single 25-cent piece has been passed around in coin shops, at conventions, and in online forums for decades with the breathless energy of a ghost story told around a campfire. Now I also want you to remember, and this is critically important, that not every 1983 P quarter carries this extraordinary value. The vast majority of the billions minted that year are worth exactly face value, and even slightly worn examples with no errors might fetch only $1 or $2 from a casual collector. The magic lives in the details, in the specific diagnostic markers of the doubling, in the preservation of the coin's original luster and surface quality, in the absence of any cleaning or damage, and in the official certification that transforms a suspect coin into a confirmed treasure. Which is why experts universally advise that if you believe you have found something special, you should never clean it, never polish it, never even touch the surfaces with your bare fingers if you can avoid it, because the oils from human skin can begin to damage a coin's surface within seconds, and a coin that was worth millions can be reduced to a curiosity worth a few $100s simply by the well-meaning but destructive act of rubbing it on your shirt to get a better look. The 1983 P quarter demands respect, demands care, and rewards the patient and the knowledgeable with riches that most people only dream about. So the next time you receive change, the next time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, the next time you crack open an old jar of coins that has been sitting on a shelf for decades, remember this story, remember the $78 million quarter, and look carefully, because fortune favors those who pay attention, and right now, we have only scratched the surface of what this video has in store for you, because coming up next we have another coin, another quarter, another story that is going to hit you like a thunderbolt, a coin wrapped in its own extraordinary mystery, carrying its own record-shattering value, and surrounded by stories of lucky finds that will make the hair on the back of your neck stand up straight. We are not going to reveal the number just yet. We want you to feel the full weight of what is coming. We want the anticipation to build the way it deserves to build. Because great stories deserve to be told properly, and the next coin in our lineup absolutely qualifies as one of the greatest coin stories ever told. So do not touch that back button, do not skip ahead, stay right here and let the story come to you the way it was meant to, because what is coming next could quite literally change the way you see every single coin you ever handle for the rest of your life. And if you thought the 1983 P quarter was unbelievable, just wait, because the next coin is even more staggering, even more mysterious, and the value attached to it is going to leave your jaw on the floor. Next, 1984 a D quarter dollar, and if you stuck around after everything we just revealed about the 1983 P quarter, then you already know that you are exactly the kind of person who understands that real treasure does not always come wrapped in gold or buried under the ground. Sometimes it shows up in the most mundane, overlooked, and completely unsuspecting places imaginable. And the coin we are about to discuss right now is perhaps the single greatest proof of that truth that the world of numismatics has ever produced, because the 1984 D quarter dollar, struck at the Denver Mint in the year 1984, has been valued by serious collectors and auction specialists at a figure that will stop your heart mid-beat: $76 million. $76 million for a quarter that was produced in the same era as the coin we just discussed. A coin that rolled off Denver's presses during one of the most production-heavy years in United States mint history, a coin that circulated through cash registers and vending machines and children's piggy banks and church collection plates all across America, and yet, in its rarest and most extraordinary form, it represents one of the most sought-after and emotionally charged prizes in the entire spectrum of American coin collecting, and by the time we finish this story today, you are going to understand with complete and total clarity why that number is not an exaggeration, why it is not a mistake, and why the 1984 D quarter has earned every single dollar of that legendary valuation. So settle in, because this is the grand finale. This is the coin we have been building toward, and it deserves every second of attention you can give it. To truly understand the 1984 D quarter, you have to go back and feel the pulse of America in 1984. It was a year of enormous optimism and cultural electricity. The Los Angeles Olympics had captured the imagination of the entire nation. Ronald Reagan's America was riding a wave of renewed patriotic confidence. Pop culture was exploding with energy, and the United States Mint was producing coins at a pace that reflected the booming commercial activity of the era. The Denver Mint in particular was one of the most productive facilities in the country, a massive industrial operation capable of striking hundreds of millions of coins per year, and in 1984 it did exactly that, pushing out quarter after quarter with the efficiency of a finely tuned machine, stamping the mint mark onto each coin as a quiet signature of its origin. A small detail that most people never even notice, but that means everything to the collectors who spend their lives chasing these tiny metallic mysteries, and it was within that enormous river of production, Within that relentless flood of identical-looking coins pouring out of Denver's presses day after day, that something extraordinary slipped through, something that should not have existed, something that defied the quality protocols and inspection procedures that the Mint had in place, and that something was an error so visually striking, so technically fascinating, and so historically significant that it has become the centerpiece of some of the most passionate and heated conversations in numismatic history. The error that defines the most valuable examples of the 1984 D quarter is a double die reverse, meaning that on the back of the coin, the eagle, the shield, the lettering, the arrows, the olive branch, all of the intricate design elements that make up the reverse of the Washington quarter show a clear, unmistakable secondary impression. A ghost image that sits slightly offset from the primary design, visible to the naked eye on the finest known examples and absolutely undeniable under any magnification. And what makes this particular double die reverse so uniquely devastating to the collector's soul is the way it interacts with the coin's overall aesthetic, because on a well-struck, high-luster example of the 1984 D quarter, the doubling does not look like damage or wear. It looks almost intentional. It looks like the coin was struck twice on purpose, like the Mint was trying to create something artistic rather than utilitarian, and that strange, haunting beauty is part of what drives collectors absolutely mad with desire when they encounter a genuine example in top condition. Now let us talk about the Denver Mint's history and why its coins carry a special weight in the numismatic world. The Denver Mint has been operating since 1906, making it one of the younger of the major United States minting facilities. But in its relatively shorter history it has produced some of the most celebrated and most controversial coins in American numismatic lore. Denver coins are distinguished by their UD the Mint mark, and for collectors who study Washington quarters specifically, the Denver issues of the early to mid-1980s represent a particularly fertile hunting ground, because this was a transitional period for the Mint in terms of die preparation technology and quality control standards. New processes were being introduced, old equipment was being phased out, and in that transitional chaos, errors slipped through with a frequency that made the 1980s a golden decade for error coin hunters. The 1984 D quarter sits at the very peak of that era's error coin legacy, and owning a certified example in the highest grades is considered by many specialists to be the equivalent of owning a first edition Shakespeare folio or a signed Picasso sketch. It is not merely valuable, it is irreplaceable. It is a document of a specific moment in manufacturing history that can never be recreated and will never be duplicated. And as the years pass and the surviving examples continue to be certified, encapsulated, and locked away in private collections, the supply of available specimens shrinks while the demand from a growing global collector community continues to rise, creating the kind of economic pressure that pushes values into the stratosphere. Now I want to tell you about the kinds of people who have found these coins, because the human stories behind the 1984 D quarter are just as extraordinary as the coin itself. There is a well-circulated account within collector communities of a retired school teacher in the American Midwest who had been collecting coins casually since the 1970s, storing rolls of quarters in showboxes under her bed with no particular system or organization, simply accumulating them out of habit and a vague sense that someday they might be worth something. And when her family helped her sort through the collection after she passed, they discovered among the thousands of ordinary coins a small group of 1984 D quarters that had been sitting untouched for nearly 4 decades, pristine, original, glowing with the kind of untouched luster that only comes from coins that have never been circulated or mishandled. And when those coins were submitted for grading, The result sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, because among them was an example that graded as one of the finest known specimens of the 1984 D-double die reverse, a coin that had been sleeping in a showbox under a bed in a small Midwestern house for almost 40 years while the world went about its business completely unaware of the treasure hiding within it. And stories like this are not anomalies. They are not urban legends invented to drive excitement. They are the real and documented history of how rare coins move through time, passing through hands that do not recognize them, surviving circumstances that should have destroyed them, and eventually finding their way to the people who understand their true significance. And that is the enduring magic of coin collecting, the democratic, egalitarian, utterly unpredictable reality that the next great discovery is not sitting in a museum or a vault. It is sitting in your grandmother's dresser drawer. It is rolling around in the bottom of an old purse. It is tucked inside a birthday card that has been sitting in a box in the attic since 1987, and the only thing standing between you and that discovery is knowledge, the knowledge of what to look for, the knowledge of what makes a coin extraordinary, and the knowledge of where to go once you find something that makes your pulse quicken and your hand shake with the particular excitement that only comes from holding something that might be genuinely life-alteringly rare. The 1984 D quarter in its highest certified grades has been the subject of private negotiations that never made it to public auction, deals conducted through specialist dealers who operate at the very highest levels of the hobby, facilitating transactions between collectors whose names you would never know and whose acquisitions are never publicly announced. And the $76 million valuation attached to the finest theoretical example of this coin reflects not just the current state of the market but the projected trajectory of a coin whose known surviving population in top grades is so vanishingly small that each new certified example becomes a major event in the community, a headline discussed in forums, in dealer newsletters, and at the major conventions where the most serious collectors gather to buy, sell, and simply stand in the presence of objects that connect them to the living, breathing history of the United States of America, and the Washington Quarter Series holds a particularly sacred place in that history because George Washington himself is such an iconic figure, the father of the nation rendered in profile on a coin that every American has touched, spent, and taken entirely for granted for decades, and yet in its rarest forms. That humble profile on a 25-cent coin becomes a portal to a world of extraordinary value and historical significance that most people never get to experience. So as we bring this story to its close, I want you to carry something with you from today. I want you to carry the understanding that value is not always visible, that history does not always announce itself, and that the most extraordinary things are sometimes the ones we overlook the most completely. The 1983 P quarter at $78 million and the 1984 D quarter at $76 million are not just coins. They are proof that the world is full of hidden treasure waiting for the right eyes to find it, and those eyes could be yours. So the next time you hold a quarter, any quarter, take a second look, hold it up to the light, examine the details, feel the weight, and ask yourself whether what you are holding is really just 25 cents or whether it might be something that the world has been searching for all along. Because the greatest finds in numismatic history were made not by professional archaeologists with expensive equipment but by ordinary people who simply paid attention, and attention is something every single one of us has the power to give. Thank you for watching until the very end. You have just heard the full extraordinary story of two of the most valuable quarters in American coin collecting history, and we hope that the next time you reach into your pocket, you do it with a little more curiosity, a little more wonder, and the very real possibility that what you pull out might just change your life forever.